So hello, my name is Michael Scott Forehand. I'm an agency director here at Symmetry Financial Group, and we're here today to talk about Symmetry's proprietary product, Debt-Free Life. And so let's go ahead and get rolling with the presentation. Here we go. So Debt-Free Life is Symmetry's proprietary product. It's based on a unique combination of whole life program with additional specific riders, and we'll talk about those in just a few minutes. But what this really is, this is a program that's designed to tackle what the United States' greatest problem is in my book right now, which is debt. Everybody's got debt. The debt's growing. When you do some comparisons about how much money we used to, the average income level was 20 years ago, which was 31,000, to what it is now, which is 38,000. And then if you compare that to the house pricing 20 years ago, which was 156 average price, and now it's 308. Where our income level is not tracking with the amount of debt that we have. And way this is set up for all of us, unfortunately, the only way we're going to get through this and get have the lifestyle that we're accustomed to and want is we have to take on more and more debt. And it's all going to come crashing down at some point unless we do something about it. So Symmetry's Debt-Free Life product is using a couple of novel financial concepts that we like to talk about. One's called debt snowballing, true debt snowballing, not debt stacking. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. And the other is called infinite banking. And the whole concept behind infinite banking, it's not new. It's been around for a long time. It's proven and it works. And that's why when you couple those two pieces together, the debt snowballing plus the infinite banking, you have a scenario that really, if you follow the system, follow the plan, follow a roadmap, you can't lose. So debt-free life. What is debt-free life? Debt-free life is what answers these two questions. If I could ask you, if you had an opportunity to be out of debt in 9 years or less, would you do it? Are you 100% sure you're going to have a fantastic retirement? Nobody can answer that question. These are two standard things that are bothering a lot of people in this country, most people in this country, actually. And if you just looking at like teachers, for example, one of the biggest concerns for most teachers in this country, and that's a huge segment of our population, none of them think they're going to have a good retirement. None of them have a positive outlook on what their retirement is going to be like. And we look at people taking out these 30-year mortgage these days, which is great. But I ran into an 81-year-old the other day who took out a 30-year mortgage. What's he doing? He's setting his family up to have a big debt later on in life. And it's unfortunate, but it is the nature of the beast these days. So what we do here at Symmetry and what we do with this Debt-Free Life program is put our clients in a situation where they don't have to worry about whether or not their mortgage is going to be around for 30 years. They don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to have enough money at retirement, because our system tackles both of those issues and really, really comes out shining really, really brightly. So let's move forward. So like most people, if you're like most people, this is myself included 2 years ago before my wife and I started our DFL program, we were the average American, make good money, but because of debt, because of taxes, we are not able to save an appropriate amount of money for retirement. And this being the average American example, where we're only saving about 3% of our income for a rainy day, for our retirement. Nobody, and I'm sure nobody thinks they're going to be able to exist on a retirement where you're only saving 3% now, and that's going to provide whatever you're going to need later in life. We're living longer. And this is a huge concern for a large segment of the American population, which is, am I going to be able to retire comfortably? Am I going to outlive my money? And this is a huge financial planning question that most financial planners are asking pretty much everybody they talk to, and nobody can answer that. Everybody has that concern. So what we can do with a Debt-Free Life program is we can solve the key problems, which is how we're spending money, and put us in a situation where we can spend money more efficiently. That interest rate that we're paying, 34 cents of every dollar that we make as an American typically is going to go to pay for interest. So if we can reduce the amount of interest we're paying over time without making any more money, then we can put ourselves in a much brighter future and put us on a much straighter, narrower path to get to the end of this game with what we need without having to worry. If we can eliminate the amount of taxes, our government's out of control. 40% of all the money we make is for going to pay for taxes. Now, that's what the Tea Party was about back in, several hundred years ago when our country fought for independence. It was about taxation, and hyper taxation is what's happening now. And then finally, that 23%, that 23 cents of every dollar, that's what we live on. That's what you use to make your mortgage payments and put food on the table and pay your power bill. And it's not enough. And we're making it work, but it's not enough. And it doesn't have to be this way. And that's what debt-free life is about. It's about changing the paradigm. Talked a minute ago about how much money we make. And there's Americans who make plenty of money. The average American makes $2 million in their lifetime. That is a lot of money. And anybody that makes that kind of money should certainly be able to have a safe, comfortable retirement. The problem is that in that $2 million, we only save 3%, $60,000. And if you're at that point in your career when you're 50, 55, 60 years old, you're making the most money you've ever made in your life in those age groups. And now all of a sudden you're expecting that you're going to drop from $60,000 or $70,000 a year to $60,000 total retirement and rely on Social Security and maybe a pension. Anybody ever heard of the pension going belly up? Anybody ever heard of Enron? Right. So there's lots and lots of pitfalls here for retirement, and most of them, unfortunately, we can't see coming. And that's what debt-free life, one of the key tenets of debt-free life is about. It's about putting you on the straight and narrow, about shining the flashlight where the holes are, building bridges over there where the chasms are, and really putting you in a situation where you don't have to worry about it anymore. And the beautiful thing about debt-free life and the systems that we have in place and the software that we use is that we are able to really paint a clear path and have a clear step A, step B, step C, and you'll be good to go. So moving on. When you are looking at debt and you're talking to a debt counselor or debt consolidation, and they're giving you some tools and making some recommendations about how to get out of debt, those bullets that you see on the right side of your screen are all things that they're going to use as a common methodology to get you out of debt. Every one of them can work. Most of them will fail. And the only one that doesn't fail with regularity is that debt snowball. And that's the one thing that we've incorporated into our program, because debt snowballing really does work. So if I'm 55 years old and I've got a mortgage of $200,000 and another $100,000 of other debts, and I go see a debt consolidator or a debt counselor, and they say, yeah, go get a second job, spend less money, go eat ramen and tuna fish, save more money, refinance all your debt. That's a great idea. Take all of my debt and use my home, do my home equity line of credit, give my creditors on my credit card debt access to my equity in my house. That's not the way to go. Consolidate my debt, make all the smaller debts into one bigger debt. Does that make any sense? You're not doing anything. You're just trading debt for debt. The debt snowball really does work. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what I would say is the different approaches to elimination of debt that have been around for a long time are most of the time will work for some period of time. And if you look at some of those other approaches that other companies have purported over time and have presented, there's almost always an Achilles heel. And that's how we came up with debt-free life. Is we finally reviewed the different approaches, figured out where the Achilles heels were, and specifically put procedures and processes in place to eliminate those common pitfalls, those common reasons why debt elimination programs fail. Moving on. So, and this is what we came up with. Better way. We come back to that question. If I could show you a way to eliminate all debt in 9 years or less without spending any money, would you want to do it? And really, what we've found and what I'm seeing is it's not just eliminating all debt in 9 years or less. So for example, my family, my wife and I, we went from 27 years down to 6.2 years. So it's not just about eliminating all the debt in 9 years or less. It's how much quicker can you get out of debt? It's not just the time, but it's also quicker, because there are some people who do these programs that maybe the only debt they have is a mortgage. And in that situation, is it going to make it in 9 years or less? It depends. Maybe it depends on how you fund it. But what I can say is that what I've seen is that it makes these programs, when you institute these, the debt elimination cycle is going to be reduced from somewhere between 3 and 27 years earlier. And that's what I've seen. So I like 9 years or less, but realistically, it's 3 to 27 years faster. And the only time it's only 3 years faster, that's when someone only had 6 years debt. So really cut it in half. So we're really looking at a 50% increase in the rate at which you limit your debt as a minimum with these programs, which is phenomenal. And that's, again, without spending any more money than you're already spending. So where you are as an American, most likely the average household, 250 grand a year, 3% of what you make is what's going to save, and that's your retirement. It's not enough. You're spending 34% of your taxes, way too much. You're spending 40% on taxes, 34% on interest, way too much. And you're making things happen. You're making ends meet with only 23 cents of every dollar that you make. That's great if you've got your finances under control and you can make ends meet. But what if I could show you a way that instead of having zero left over every month or $1,000 left over every month, what happens if I could increase it by 40%? What happens if I could jump the amount of disposable income you have from 23% of every dollar to 33% of every dollar without making any more money, without spending any more money? And oh, by the way, we're going to have a 500% increase in the amount of money you're saving for retirement using this program. So if you look at the left side versus the right side, that means we're changing from about 25% of your dollar being able to be used for your current expenses and your current life and your current living habits and your savings for retirement to almost 50%. It's a huge increase. And if you do it and you follow the system and you do it the way the system teaches you, it is a no-brainer, really is. So how do we do it? Well, we're going to eliminate all your debt in 9 years primarily or less. We're going to reduce the amount of interest you pay over time. That's huge, because if you reduce the amount of interest you're paying over time, where's that money going? It's going right in your pocket. It becomes that additional cash flow. It becomes that additional financial nest egg so that you can have a comfortable retirement. If we reduce your taxes over time, what happens there? Same thing. Instead of paying 40% in taxes, now you're paying 30%. That's a 25% decrease in the amount of taxes you're paying over time. That's huge. Where's the money going? Again, right back into your pocket, into your nest egg, your retirement nest egg. Improving your cash flow. If these programs didn't work because they said, you know what, we want you to tighten your belt for 2 years. We want you not to do anything out of the ordinary. We want you to cut your cable TV off. Get yourself down to one phone, sell one of your cars. If that was the method that we used and your cash flow was constricted, nobody would successfully do these programs. At the end of the day, we're all human. We've got to have our playtime. And so we're not telling you to do that. As a matter of fact, we're telling you to increase that. Okay. And then finally, we'll talk about this in just a second, tax favored income. From my seat, the most tax favored of all income types when you're retired is a tax exempt income. And that's what this program does. If you do it correctly, you'll have a tax exempt retirement income. So when you compare this to a 401 or a 403 or a TSP or a FERS or a KIA or any of those other retirement vehicles, which are existing under banking law, we'll talk about that in a minute too, then this is a no-brainer. The IRS can't tax you on this if you do it right, and we will show you how to do it right. Moving on. So one of the biggest reasons that we came up with why all those other programs that have come before this have failed is because they don't plan for the unexpected. They don't plan for that emergency. One of the most common programs out there, for example, assumes that the stock market is going to have a positive gain 12 years in a row. I give you $100 if you can tell me when that's ever happened with the stock market, where there's been 12 years of consistent gain without any year of level or loss. So some of the predispositions or some of the, I guess, the givens that some of those programs use are not realistic. So what we know is that the unexpected is always going to happen. You may get sick and you can't work for a while. COVID may happen and you can't work for a while. Your company may go belly up and you can't work for a while. Your spouse may get sick and they can't work for a while. These things are going to happen. They happen all the time. But what our system does, in the way that we've set it up, is that we prepare for that unexpected bump in the road. And our system is as much cash as our program gains, as much long-term money that we build, we still have an emergency fund in the system built in by default. It's there. You can't see it. We don't want you to see it. We don't want you to make it easy to go get that money, because when you have an emergency, we want it to be a true emergency before you start looking at that. And that's the important part. So we make the fund available to you. It's there. It's hidden. It builds cash value over time. It grows with a guaranteed interest rate, grows with dividends, but you can't see it. So when we talk about tax deferred versus tax free, so again, this is just simple math, folks, and this is not magic. It's just math, and it doesn't lie. If you take a standard $10,000 investment, these are the numbers that we use for each one of these different scenarios. A standard $10,000 investment, invest it in a taxed strategy, a tax deferred strategy, or a tax free strategy. Same $10,000 investment, same 28-year run of investment, same standard 7% interest rate. And we haven't changed your tax rate, your tax bracket. You're still paying 25% income tax. When you use those standard metrics for the same $10,000 investment, it is a no-brainer. The taxed investment strategy, it's going to come out almost 30% light. The tax deferred, like your 401k, like your 403, the tax deferred strategy is going to come out about 20%, maybe 25% light. So it's a no-brainer. The way our system works, you pay the tax when you make the money. And that's it. That's the only time. So when you're growing over time, for example, with a 401k, as the money in your 401k grows and your tax is deferred, the amount of tax you're going to go is growing also. But if we pay the tax now and then still maintain that growth, then the only thing that's growing in a tax-free strategy, which is what a DFL is, the only thing that's growing in a tax-free strategy is the cash, the tax-free cash. So that's why this is a no-brainer when you look at these and compare them side by side. Oh, and by the way, if you happen to be in one of those tax-deferred strategies like a 401k, does the market ever go down? Does the market go sideways? With our system, we don't care whether the market goes up, down, or all around. We don't care, because we're not based in market performance. Okay, moving on. So, like all financial strategies, they work in phases, and this is no different. So a standard debt-free life program works in 3 phases: maximization, accumulation, distribution. So let me explain what these 3 phases are. Maximization phase is right at the beginning, when you've got debt. You've got a mortgage, you've got credit cards, you've got student loans, you got car loans, you got personal loans, whatever. When you've got debt, then you're in the maximization phase. And our goal in the maximization phase is to eliminate that debt as quickly as possible, so that the funds that you do have, remember, not paying any more money than we start with. We're not changing the amount of money you're spending. Okay, we're just taking and changing the way you're spending it. We're just putting it in a more efficient spend profile. So in that maximization phase, we want to get you to the point where you're spending money more efficiently and eliminating your debt faster than you ever thought possible. That's what our system does. That's the maximization phase. Okay, so you get out of the maximization phase. How long does that take? Depends on your debt. What we see primarily is usually 7 to 9 years if you've got a mortgage. If you don't have a mortgage, it's probably in the nature of 3 to 5 years. If you've got a tremendous amount of debt, the most I've ever seen for anybody is 15 years. And that's with someone who has a brand new mortgage they took out last month. It was a 30-year mortgage. That's the longest I've ever seen it take using this system. So the accumulation phase, that's that middle part. That's when your debt is gone. The debt snowball has reached its maximum size, and you are putting more money away than you ever thought possible into your tax-exempt retirement program. And that's the second phase. That's the second goal of these debt-free life programs. And then finally, we get to the distribution phase. And that's when you're not necessarily funding the program anymore. You're not necessarily putting more money into it. Maybe you've turned it into what we call an RPU, reduced paid up program, and all you're doing is taking money from it. And the dividend and the guaranteed interest that are coming into your program are basically funding a tax-free retirement for you. Not to mention a humongous legacy that you're leaving for your family. I don't mean a couple $100,000. I'm talking 7 figures typically. And I'm also talking, this is not creating money for your children or even your grandchildren. This is generational wealth if you do it right, if you do it long enough. So maximization, accumulation, distribution, standard financial program phases. Debt-free life doesn't do anything different, follows the same process. Moving on. So I mentioned that some of the programs, especially the infinite banking concept, has been around for a long time, and programs like this have been around for a long time. As a matter of fact, one of the carriers we use to do this program here at Symmetry has been doing this for well over 100 years. The issue that we have is that most of the time people haven't heard about this because this has been a solution that's been utilized by the wealthiest segment of our population for a long time. And unfortunately, most of the blue collar people that we run into, they haven't heard of this. And so just as an example, these are some of the people that have utilized this program in the past. Walt Disney used it to fund Walt Disney World. Doris Christopher with Pampered Chef. Ray Kroc did his first 12 McDonald's using this system. And Warren Buffett does it to this day. The financial instrument of infinite banking is a sound, trusted, and proven system. Debt snowballing is a sound, trusted, and proven system. And our system here, Debt-Free Life, uses both. So how does this really work? This is what we already talked about. We're just spending money more efficiently. That's all this is. So if I have the opportunity to pay off $1 of debt, once I pay that $1 of debt, it's gone forever. What if I didn't have to have that dollar be gone forever? What if I could keep it forever? What if I can become the bank? That's what this is about. This is about the creation of a private bank that can be used initially in the maximization phase of elimination of all your debt. And in the end, in the distribution phase, the creation of a tax-free retirement income stream that you can't outlive. All right. So when we first started this program, Symmetry started this program in May of 2019. And these were some of the first people that we did these programs for. And those numbers that you see there, from my experience recently, are fairly light. Granted, if I'm walking down the street and I see $84,000, after I look over my shoulder and make sure I'm not being punked, I'm probably going to pick it up. I might report it, but the idea is that if you can find $84,000, you're going to do something with it, especially if it's your money to begin with. Which don't have any doubt. All the stuff we're talking about is your money. You're just saying we're not going to pay you, Mr. Lender. We're going to pay ourselves instead, and we're going to keep the money. Okay, so let's talk about how you currently spend money. This is to shine the light on the two primary differences between the way you spend money now in an inefficient manner and the way we spend money in debt-free life. So here's how this works. So first off, you go make your money. You're a 1099, W-2, W-4, doesn't really matter. You make money. As you make the money, it gets deposited into your checking account, into whatever bank you use, Wells Fargo, Citibank, Bank of America, whatever. And then your money is in that account for a period of time, and that bank likes you, and they make money with your money every night, and they lend it out at the federal funds rate. And the average dollar that you put into your bank account, your bank will spend, use, lend, and respend 7 times before you actually get to use it. They will make money with your bank, with your dollar, 7 times. And instead of them sharing that with you, they may say, you know what, Mr. Forehand, because you've got more than $2,500 in your bank account, we're not going to charge you to keep your money in our bank. And they're not going to share what they made with me. They're just not going to charge me for the storage of my cash. That's their method. And then finally, when it comes time to pay that bill, make my car payment, pay my mortgage, whatever, I tell my bank to pay that payment. I write a check. I go through my bill pay system, whatever, and the debt's paid. And then all that's happened is I parked my money in their bank for a period of 7 days or longer. They made money with my money 7 days or longer. And then they took my money and paid my debt and didn't give me a dime for using my money. That's your current method of spending money. Your money in the end has become your creditor's money. It's gone. It's gone forever. And I don't care if you're the nicest, sweetest person in the world. If you go up to them and say, hey, I know I just paid off my debt, but I really need that money back because I need to go buy books for school. I need to go put food on the table. They're going to say, I'm sorry, maybe, or laugh at you. One or the other. Either way, you're not getting the money. That's the inefficient way to do things. That's the way we were all taught. Here's the way you should be doing things. This is the debt-free life method. Same money, same job, not making any more money, not spending any more money. Nothing changes there. You make the money, it's income, it gets deposited into your checking account. Nothing's changing here. But now is where the rubber meets the road in our scenario. Remember where the bank was taking the money and making money with my money over and over and over again, and then me paying the debt? Well, now instead of me doing that, I'm going to take the money out of my bank, my checking account. I'm going to put it up into my life insurance policy. What kind is it? Whole life. We talked about that earlier. This program is built on what we call participating whole life. What that means is that you are able to participate with the profitability of the life insurance company. Does anybody know what the most profitable companies on the planet are? They're life insurance companies. Anybody ever heard of a bank that goes out of business? All the time. Anybody ever heard of a life insurance company goes out of business? Nah, not really. All right. So we're going to put our money into the most profitable and safest investment environment on the planet. If you have any doubts about what I just said, look at the portfolio of Wells Fargo. 48% of Wells Fargo's tier 1 assets, which is the safest type of investment, is actually whole life policies that they've purchased. There's companies out there that go around and they buy people's life insurance policies, and the lenders, the bankers, use those as secure investments because they have permanent cash value. All right. So back to this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write a check, and it doesn't need to be this large. I'm just using this for nice round numbers. Let's say my premium for that life insurance policy that I'm doing is $100 a month. Okay. So I write a check for $100. So I've taken $100 out of my checking account that my bank doesn't get to use anymore. I've put it up into my whole life policy. I've paid my whole life premium. But when the premium hits the bank, it gets separated into 3 parts. Whole life, term life, paid up additions. Whole life is what the policy is. It is a participating whole life policy. Term life is the rider. What the term life rider, the sole purpose of the term life rider is what we heard Kelly Steinmetz talking a few minutes ago, tax code 7702. And that tax code says life insurance policies that have cash value, if the cash value exceeds the life insurance value, then that is no longer a life insurance policy. It's what we call a modified endowment contract. And then the dinner bell is rung for the IRS because everything becomes taxable, and they love when you screw up and make it a mech. Okay. So the purpose of that term life rider is to create this massive death benefit umbrella in life insurance while we're growing the cash underneath. Okay. So that we can grow that cash underneath without having the IRS come in and say, hey, it's a mech, we want you to pay us. So that's the purpose of the term life rider. Roughly 11% of each premium payment that you make is going to go to pay for a term life. 68% is going to go to that paid up addition. Remember how we said just a few minutes ago that you've got the money going into the bank and the bank's making your money with your money over and over and over again? Remember that? Yep. Well, through the process of purchasing paid up additions, we've moved that compounding component. We've moved that daily sale of the dollars, and we put it squarely into our corner using DFL. And we've created a private bank using life insurance in the form of paid up additions plus cash value that is sequestered in the whole life portion. So in the grand scheme of things, my $100 payment that I just made For my life insurance policy, $68 is going to buy paid up additions, $11 is going to go buy term life, and $21 is going to be spent for the purpose of purchasing that whole life and maintaining the whole life policy. Now, remember that thing we talked about a few minutes ago about that emergency fund? There's your emergency fund. The whole life portion of this actually has a cash value that grows over time. That's your emergency fund. You don't ever want to touch it, but that's where it's hiding, okay? It's earning an interest rate. It's earning a dividend, just like your paid up additions are. So wait a minute, what did I just say? Paid up additions? Yes. So when these programs are started, a portion of every dollar that you put into this program buys paid up additions, additional life insurance. That additional life insurance is classified in the investment world as a tier 1 asset. Why is it called a tier 1 asset? Because it is the safest investment on the planet. Why? Because it has zero cost to maintain and there is 0% chance it will lose value ever. If I pay for $1,000 of life insurance and it's fully paid up, tomorrow it's worth $1,000. Next month it's worth $1,000. Next year it's worth $1,000. The value of that life insurance policy that's paid up does not change. And so the carriers know that and they say, wait a minute, that's $1,000. You've given us $1,000. We're going to use that. We're going to go invest it in the market. We're going to hedge. We're going to make money. We're going to play the market. We're going to buy a stock up, buy a put, sell the stock down, collect on the put. This is how they make money. This is how hedge funds work, okay? So what they're doing is they're using your money to make a ton more money than they're giving you. So in this scenario, we're making somewhere between 4 and maybe 8%, depending on how well the market's performing or how well the company's performing. Rest assured, if they're paying us 8, they're making 20, okay? So they're making a ton of money. So this is how we are able to participate with the profit of the company without being invested in the market, without being exposed to the market, without having to worry about whether we're ever going to have a down year or not, by using the paid up addition investment method. And then the carrier pays us a guaranteed interest rate, guaranteed in writing. I use a nice round number of 4%. It's usually a little bit less than that. And then it also pays a dividend at the end of every year based on how much money you have in the program. Paid up additions are treated like cash for the purpose of that calculation. So if I'm paying, here we go, if I'm paying $100 a month, right? And I've got $68 a month going into cash, and I've got $21 going to whole life, of which some is cash. What am I really doing? That means of my $100 a month that I'm paying, about 75 or $80 a month is being considered as cash growth. Plus I'm earning a dividend on top of that. Plus I'm earning compounded interest on top of that. Okay, so let's move on with the scenario about how we spend money. So now we've done this exercise. We put the money up into our DFL bank. We saved some money. We've sequestered it permanently in our DFL bank. And now it's time to pay that debt. So I want to pay the debt. How am I going to do that? I'm going to take a loan. So if you think of it like this, if I go to a bank and I give them $10,000 and buy a $10,000 CD, okay, they're going to give me maybe 2% return. If I come in the very next day and something's happened and I need to borrow $10,000, if I take my $10,000 CD and cancel it, I have a huge penalty. I'm not getting back $10,000, okay? But if I don't, and I just want to take a loan and use that as collateral, the bank will be more than happy to give me a loan of $10,000, especially considering I'm borrowing my money from the bank, okay? And what are they going to charge me? They're only going to charge me 4.5%. They're charging me 4.5% to borrow my money. That's the bank's methodology, okay? So this is our bank. This is a private bank. This is what we've done here. We set up a private bank using debt-free life. So I'm going to take a loan from the bank of my money. All right. Remember those things I said earlier. You get a guaranteed interest rate and you get a dividend, right? So what happens if the guaranteed interest rate and the dividend is equal to the amount of money I'm being charged? I've got a zero cost of money. What happens if it's a little bit upside down? Maybe 1%. Okay. So think of it like this. Here's a great one. If I have a house, I want to go buy a house. I want to, and I've got $100,000 sitting in a savings account. I'm going to go buy a house. I'm going to pay cash for it, right? What's my cost in that money? Zero. Okay. Really, is it zero? Not really. Because what could I be earning with that money? So if I take that money and put it up into my DFL campaign, put in $100,000, take out a $100,000 loan, buy that house, what have I done now? So if I bought the house without the loan, just paid cash for it, that means I've turned $100,000 cash into $100,000 equity. This is a hard concept. Here you go. You're getting ready to have an aha moment. Here we come. If I take that $100,000 and put it up into my DFL and then take a loan from my DFL and buy that house, now what do I have? I have $100,000 equity in the house and I have $100,000 in my bank. I didn't take my money out. I took a loan. Okay, but yes, Scott, but you took a loan. Yep, I took a loan. You got to pay back the loan, don't you? Nope. Why not? I've got the collateral. It's earning interest. It's earning a dividend, and it's going to pay itself off over time. You should have had an aha moment. Okay, so now I'm not saying that's how you do it, but that's one method. And there's lots of different ways you can utilize a DFL program. So let's finish going through this exercise of how we spend money. So we just took a loan from our private bank. We took a loan. We didn't take our money. Our money is still up in that private bank earning interest plus a dividend. We took the loan. We took it as a carrier loan. We deposited that money right back into our checking account. We told our bank to take that money and pay our debt. So they pay the debt. And now the creditors paid. Are they happy? Of course. They got paid. They don't care. Where's my money? Mr. Hurley, where's my money? My money is still in my private bank. Whose money do they have? They have the carrier's money. Do I care? Absolutely not. Because my money is still in my private bank, earning an interest rate, earning a dividend. And oh, by the way, when you do this year over year over year, this is what I was telling you about. This creates generational wealth. Think of it like this, and this is going to make you sick, okay? How much money have you spent in your lifetime to this point? And if you'd been able to save all that money that you've spent into a private bank and still had all the stuff that you bought, where would you be right now? Yep, did you just get a sick feeling? I know I did. All right, so now let's see how this works in practice. So this is a real family that I worked with. This is back in October of 2019. This family had a lot of debt, I guess. I've seen much worse. All right. So they had a number of debts. And one of the big debts they had, I want to say this over and over and over, student loans are evil, people. One of the biggest loans they had, one of the biggest debts they had was a student loan because the wife was a PhD student and she hadn't worked in 10 years and nothing wrong with that. She'd been in school for 10 years getting her PhD and she had all that student debt built up. Student loans are evil, people.
Hey, Scott.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Is everybody seeing a split screen? No, you guys can see the illustration clearly? Okay, I guess I'm the only one. Sorry to interrupt. I wanted to make sure everyone could see the picture.
Thanks. So this group had a significant amount of debt that was in the form of student loans, but this is also a couple that had both been married previously. So they had two houses coming into this marriage. And they had, this gentleman was an over-the-road trucker that owned a trucking company. So he had a significant amount of back taxes because he hadn't planned correctly. And then they had cars and some other credit cards and stuff like that. So when we showed them the true debt that they had, they said, you know what, if we had $585,000, we could pay all of our debt off in one shot. So that's all we owe. I said, no, that's not all you owe. Because the reality is on the track that you're on, it's going to take you 40 years because student loans are evil, people. It's going to take you 40 years to pay off all that student loan debt. So over time, that interest that you're going to pay, the total amount of money you're going to pay over time is $767,000, $182,000 in scheduled interest. That's insane. That's what they were going to do. And at the end of 40 years, they'd have zero debt, two houses with 100% equity, and nothing left to show for it beyond that. Their retirement program was the equity in their houses. Brilliant, right? American population thinks this way. Our system showed them how to do it differently, showed them how to spend money differently, how to do it more efficiently, how to do it smarter. And we took that 40-year debt plan that they had and turned it into 7.8 years, saved them $70,000 in interest. So that means they're still paying $112,000 in interest, but $112,000 is a heck of a lot better than $182,000. More importantly, here's the money shot, folks. More importantly, we turned 40 years of debt into 7.8 years to be out of debt freedom. We saved $70,000 in interest. But remember what I've been saying from the beginning of this conversation. We created a tax-free retirement income. And the tax-free retirement income that this family did, right there and there at the bottom, $4.8 million cash. How did they do that? Remember, not spending any more money than they're already spending, not going out and getting a second job, not tightening the belt and eating ramen and tuna fish noodles, or ramen noodles and tuna fish. You know what I'm saying? So how did they do it? It's just simply spending money in a more efficient manner and putting themselves in a situation where they can keep and continue to use their money. Do what the banks do with your money right now. The banks lend your money out over and over and over again. So what are they doing? They're using their money over and over and over again. We call it dollar cycling. That's one of the things we do here with DFL programs. So how does it really work? In this illustration, what you see here are years of their debt-free life program where some debt was paid off. And there's a couple things I want you to pay particular attention to. First off, look at this first year. In this first year, they took out $14,900 in loans from their DFL program. That's pretty strong. At the end of the year, they owed $8,629 on the loan that they took out. So that means that in the course of the first year, they took loans, paid loans, took loans, paid loans. This is called dollar cycling. So we're going up and down and up and down and up and down. They started with $14,000, so they paid off $14,900 of debt because that's that loan. They paid back the loan over the course of year 8629, but hey, get this. At the end of the year, their liquidity was still $12,000. That means the program still had $12,000 even after they paid off $14,900 worth of debt and borrowed $14,900 at some point and paid it down to $8,600. That's phenomenal. Remember that emergency money I was telling you about? This is it. This is how much money is in their emergency fund at the end of the year. $3,000 at the end of the first year. That's pretty strong. Second year, look at this. It took another $15,000 in loans. They paid down the balance from the previous year of $8,629 and then paid down most of that $15,000 so that the total loan balance at the end of that year is only $7,793. Now they're up to $7,000 in their emergency fund. But holy cow, now their liquidity is up to $40,000. It grows and grows and grows and grows. Year three, hold your socks. Year three, we're paying $58,000 of the debt. And to put that in perspective, remember they had all those debts, credit cards, cars, student loans, houses, all that stuff was there, right? What happened? They paid off everything except these three loans here. House, student loan. So they paid off of the 17 debts they had, they paid off 14 of them in the first 3 years. That's huge. That's how the system works because it created a massive debt snowball so that in the third year of their program, they're able to take loans of $58,000. At the end of the year, they still owed $48,000, but they paid off the previous year's loan. There's now $11,000 sitting in their emergency fund, and they still got $29,800 liquid sitting in their bank. Liquid. Now look, the fourth year, it's not yellow. What does that mean? That means the way the software illustrates it, that means that in that particular year, the three debts that they had never were below this $91,000 of liquidity. There was never enough money to pay off the total amount owed on a debt. And you can see that the next year, because in the very next year, fairly early on, they took a loan of $96,000 from their system and paid off one of their houses. And then look, and we continue to grow with the emergency fund, it continues to grow. So a couple other things I wanted to point out here. So this program was 7.8 years, which is great. It's certainly a hell of a lot better than 40 years like they were planning on it. And instead of waiting 40 years to have 100% equity in their house, they got 100% equity in their houses, in less than 8 years. So they have 100% equity in their house. All of their other debts paid off. The student loans are paid off. Student loans are evil people. And look, at the end, they still have this massive loan. 177,000 is what the loan value is up to. That's how much they owed. And the very next year, they paid off 60,000 of that loan. Not only did they pay off, look at this, not only did they pay off $60,000 in debt of a loan, okay, they also grew their cash value $100,000. So if you come down 60,000 in debt and you go up $100,000 in value, that means you had a net delta, net change of $160,000 in 1 year. And then next year it does the same thing, pays off that debt, pays off $70,000 of debt, and we grow another $100,000 over here cash value. Does anybody have a holy cow moment? This is not magic, people. This is just math, and this is contracted math, right? Guaranteed interest rate, dividend, beautiful, right? Here's something to pay attention, this column. The way this system works, we talked about this earlier, modified endowment contracts, what they mean, what the IRS does with it, and the fact that once that game's up, then everything becomes taxable. This particular family ran into that problem in year 11 of their scenario. And in year 11, there's too much money going into the program. The program can't absorb anymore. So in this scenario, this says, okay, we're going to put $11,000 into a savings account. So I'm going to, for those of you that are agents that are out there, why in the world would you put money in a savings account when you could simply start another bank? And instead of getting that 0.25% interest that Bank of America offers or 0.5% that Wells Fargo offers, get the 4% plus a dividend that you can get here. Why wouldn't you? All right. So the point I'm making right now is that number, this savings balance column, is reflected in the annual liquidity. And there is growth that's applied to this, but the growth that's applied to this is erroneous. It's only applying a 2% growth, and you wouldn't get 2% from a savings account, first off. And second off, you wouldn't put it in a savings account, you put it into another DFL and get 4 plus. Okay. So that's the way this system works. Here's something else. This gentleman that we wrote this program on was only 36 years old at the time. He was making great money. His wife makes great money now. She's got her doctorate. She teaches at one of the local universities, and they're doing fine, make good money. He told me he was going to retire when he was 75 years old. And at 75 years old, we said, okay, that's great. At 75 years old, you can retire. You'll have $4.8 million cash in your program, of which we see that right there. 2.6 million is sitting in a savings column, because we can't hold it in a DFL because of MEC. Okay. So I said, why don't we do this? Why don't we have you retire? I don't know, maybe age 55. Let's retire you 20 years early. And we're going to retire you with $1.5 million in your bank. And with $1.5 million at a 5%, only 5% growth per year, that means we're going to create for you a $75,000 a year tax-free income. If you don't have any debt, all your bills are paid, and you've got, whatever else you've already got. This is assuming no other investment, which I'm sure there's going to be some. If we can retire you with a $75,000 for your tax-free income, which is the equivalent of $122,000 taxed, could you make it on an equivalent of $122,000 a year tax income? I could. So that's how the DFL systems work. What about if you don't have a loan? What about if you don't have a house? What about if you don't have something big like that? This is a 23-year-old college student that I did in the same day, same year. Her big deal, student loans are evil, people. She's got a student loan, lots of them. Yep. She's a master's student. Actually, at this point, she's graduated. So in this scenario, she had what looks like $85,799 of debt. That's a car, a couple credit cards, medical bill, student loans. That real debt, once you look at the interest rate, is $177,000. It's $91,000 of scheduled interest. Student loans are evil. So what do we do for her? Same deal. So instead of her being debt-free when she's 64 years old, we got her out of debt in less than 10 years. the impact of that on this young woman's life is this. In her current scenario, it would be 40 years before she's debt-free. In her current scenario, she's going to be working the rest of her life until she's 64 or 63 years old, and then she won't have any more debt. Great. What we did allowed her to, instead of spending all that time and money on interest and taxes, we put her in a situation where in the same 40 years, 63 years old, she will now be able, cool thing, if she never gets another job, never goes beyond the waitress salary that she was working when we did this program, if she never does better than that, and there's nothing wrong with that, I'm not judging, okay, but if she never does more money than that income-wise in the rest of her life, never gets married, never has kids, never gets a house, never does any of that stuff, works as a waitress the rest of her life, on her track, she'd be zero debt, 40 years. On this track, 603,000 liquid. This is a $350 a month program. 603,000 liquid, and 1.02 million once you include the paid up life insurance policy. So this is what I'm talking about. This is certainly the creation of a legacy. This is certainly the creation of generational wealth, but it doesn't need to be a single generation. If you do this correctly, you're talking about keeping your great grandchildren set for life if you do it the right way. So for her, she wanted to retire at 62. We got her retired at 55 with $409,000 cash in the program. And she never has to make another payment. And if she just wants to take the income from this, this is generating $22,000 a year of tax-free income, the difference between here and here for the rest of her life. And if that's all she does, then not only is she going to have $400,000, because we're not touching the principal here, she'll have $430,000 cash in the program, which is going to transfer to her next of kin. But don't forget, there's this life insurance policy over here too. $685,000 is paid up. I'm not paying anymore. There's my premium. My annual premium is zero from that point forward. That life insurance, $685,000 is paid up. That's what kind of a legacy? It's amazing. And this is a $350 program with someone who's got $85,000 in debt to roll into it. So that's the system. So what do you do? What's your next step? Talk to whoever invited you. If you're not doing one of these, why? If you're not healthy enough, no problem. I did one of these on an 86-year-old the other day. Didn't do it on him, did it on his son. Doesn't matter who the owner, it doesn't matter who the insured is. All that matters is who's the owner. So not only did he set his son up for life, but he's certainly able to use it like a private bank and dollar cycle through the money. And he's going to pay his 30-year mortgage off in 7 years. All right. So here we go. Let's open this up for a few questions. It's 6:43, got about 17 minutes. Anybody got any questions? There you go. Hey, Rory, how you doing, buddy?
Hi, Scott. Great. Question. In the example you just gave where the person got it on their child.
Yep.
Obviously, I think the child has to be at least 18 years of age or older, correct?
That's correct. You have to be the age of majority.
All right. If that happens, if they need to do that because of age or because of their health condition, and they have it, that's their bank, even though they have it on the child. But does that disqualify the child from also getting their own DFL bank on themselves as well?
Great question. And that's going to be a carrier specific question. And it's also going to be, I mean, most of the carriers, the underwriters, when you talk to them, they're going to understand what you're trying to do with the bank. So, but there is going to be a limitation on the amount of life insurance someone should have. It's going to be based on a combination of age and current income level. So it's usually 7 times income level over age 50. It's, I think, 10 to 12 times income level between the ages of 30 and 50, and under 30, I think it's 15 times income level. But that's something that you can skirt. You can modify that with a conversation with the carrier, and most of them will work with you. Good question. Anybody else? You all got it? Fantastic. Now's the quiz. All right, so nobody's got any more questions. Let's do an advanced market topic. You guys want to do annuity stacking, you want to do mortgage chunking, or you want to do home escrow financing? Somebody choose. Don't be shy.
Home escrow.
Home escrow. Here we go. Home escrow. Here we go. All right. So everybody knows that most people have mortgage payments. It's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. This is a real client of mine that I worked with last summer. So this, when you make your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, your PITI payments, the carrier that or the lender that you're making your payments to is taking that money and they're playing bank with it. They're investing your taxes and escrow payment until it comes time for you to pay your taxes and escrow payment. And then they're writing a check. And in the interim, they're making an interest with your taxes and escrow payment. Okay. Are they sharing it with you? No. Do they offer to share it with you? Nope. What are they doing? They feel like the fact that they're writing 2 checks on your behalf that they're owed and should be allowed to collect and keep thousands of dollars of interest over time. So I say, why? Okay, so this is that same kind of concept when you're first, 17, 18, 19 years old and you're getting your first job and you're out there claiming zero, right? And you're claiming zero because you want Uncle Sam to hold the money for you to give you that tax refund at the end of the year. This is that same thought process. I want the mortgage company to pay my mortgage payments so I don't have to worry about it. What's worried about it? That means I got to write a check. I got to write a check. Okay. So here's how sick this is. So if I have a mortgage company that allows me to do this, which if you have a mortgage company and you still have PMI on your mortgage, you can't do this. You have to be beyond PMI. Okay. So that means you have to be at less than 80% loan to value. All right. So conventional loans will always be able to do this. Fannie Mae loans will never be able to do this. VA loans will be able to do this after you're out of PMI. All right. So this is a standard scenario. So this particular gentleman had about a $1,700 a month mortgage payment. Of that $1,700, $168 was being escrowed to pay property taxes. $310 a month was being escrowed to pay homeowners insurance policy. These 2 things, here's a critical concept. These 2 things are going to be there forever. You are always going to have to pay property taxes, and you're always going to have to pay the homeowners insurance. It's not an option until you have no mortgage. And then you can forego the homeowners insurance and you'd be a fool if you did. So in this scenario, I'm spending over the period of 1 year, $5,736 for taxes and escrow. Taxes and insurance. If I had invested that at a standard 4% without including a dividend, if I'd invested that into my DFL bank, I would have made $229. It's not a lot of money, okay? But the concept is not only did I invest it and I make $229, but I got to keep my $5,736, okay? In the first year, it's going to cost you $45. The interest you're going to earn versus the interest that you're charged, there's going to be a net change of $45. So you're actually going to lose money in the first year. You're going to lose $45, right? No. Here's how I have to think about it. I'm not going to lose $45. I'm going to pay $45 to be able to capture and sequester $5,965 into my retirement program. That's how you need to look at this. In year 2, we're beyond it. In year 2, now the program is making money. In year 2, my net change, my cost of the loan minus the gain of the interest that I'm earning is going to be a plus 195. That's great. Is it worth this to make $195? Is it worth this effort, this activity to write? In this case, at this point, we would have written 4 checks. Hey, Rory, I'm going to pay you $195 to write 4 checks for me. Will you do that for me? I'll do it. Okay, that's great, right? More importantly, this is the key. I've sequestered now 11,800 and change. Year 3, Hold your socks on, Pat Hurley. You asked for it. You got it. Year three, $432. What's that mean? That means I'm headed to Vegas. I'm putting $432 on black and I'm spinning the wheel. See what happens, right? Year four, $690. Year five, $957. But now I've got $31,000 sitting in my account. Over and over and over and over. So I get to year 15. Am I going to own my house for 15 years? I don't know. I've got a mortgage payment for 30 years though. Maybe it's my final house. Maybe it's my forever house. Maybe not. Doesn't matter because that money's coming with me wherever I go. This is my DFL policy, right? So the way you are doing it right now, if you have a mortgage and if you have a mortgage where you're able to pay the taxes and escrow payment yourself, the way you currently pay it, you have zero left to show in 15 years. The way this scenario shows it, in 15 years, you're going to have an additional $119,000 sitting in your private bank that's your retirement fund, and you're earning $4,500 a year in interest. That's without the dividend, folks. That should have been another holy cow moment for you. And where this actually breaks even is in year 17. And year 17, the interest, just interest, the interest that you get off this money that you've been putting in for the last 17 years is enough to pay your taxes and insurance payment. Okay. Not to mention in 17 years, you're now up to 123,000 in your private bank. That's additional. That's just additional money. So you can do one of two things, Pat Hurley. You can take the money and pay into this program and have in 20 years, $120,000, or you can continue on the track that you're going right now and spend that $120,000 over the course of the next 15 years and have zero left to show for it. Did you have a holy cow moment, Pat Hurley? All right.
Yes, thank you, Scott.
Yep. Go, Tom.
I had a request for annuity stacking. I don't know if you have time to touch on that.
Tom.
Can I ask one quick question?
Sure, hit me.
So that's the those numbers, that is the combination of the guaranteed interest plus the dividend every
Nope.
year, right?
Nope, dividend's not included because I don't know what the dividend's going to be, so I can't
So
project it.
that's without the dividend.
Yep,
That's with zero dividend.
yep.
So if it
These
were
numbers are low.
4% dividend, 4% dividend, everything would be doubled, right?
Yep.
Not bad.
Yeah, these numbers are low.
Good.
Scott,
Yeah.
what do you typically see an average of the dividend a year? Is there an average over the last
You
5 years?
you can't look at it like that, because if you look over the last 20 years, the dividends have been anywhere from 0.25% to 8.13%. So there is no such thing as an average. And plus the dividends are going to also differ from carrier to carrier because it depends on carrier performance. So don't. The only thing I ever say about the dividend is that I know it's going to be at least 0.25%, because with all the carriers, that's the smallest dividend they've paid in the last 110 years. So the dividend for me is gravy. And the truth be told, with these DFL programs, the dividend is not a substantial number until you hit year 3. Not really, because you have to let the debt snowball effect take hold. And that takes usually 2.3, 2.5 years before the debt snowball is really rolling. Okay. Anybody else? I got 6 minutes. Let me see if I can do the annuity stack in 6 minutes. All right, daisy chain. Daisy chain annuity stacking. All right. So an annuity stack is when you put together multiple annuities that you structure one after the other. So it forms a chain, okay? And you structure them one after the other so that they come to fruition, so that they mature one after the other, okay? So the idea is that you want them to mature when you're ready to retire, and you want to be able to draw money from them when you want to, or depending on your age, when the RMD requires it or whatever. But the idea is you want to stack them. And so a daisy chain annuity stack looks like this. So what you do is once your DFL, remember maximization, accumulation, distribution. Once you're in the accumulation phase, okay, at regular periods in time, you want to take a $10,000 chunk. And I'm just using $10,000 here as an example. You can do whatever you want. Just make the chunk size consistent. And the $10,000 number is a standard number that we use when we're writing annuities because that's kind of the minimum. That's the minimum for an annuity rollover. Okay. So in this scenario, if you look in year one, this happens after 10 years in a DFL program. Okay. So if I'm 10 years into a DFL program, that means I'm certainly got rid of all my debt. I've got rid of my mortgage. I probably did mortgage chunking to get rid of my mortgage, which means I'm already accustomed to doing a $10,000 chunk payment. Okay. So I take the $10,000 and I take it out, put it in my checking account, bank account, whatever, let it season, and then take that same $10,000 and go buy a $10,000 annuity. And then I do that in March. And then the next quarter, I do it again in June. The next quarter, I do it again in September. The next quarter, I do it again in November. So now I've got 4 annuities that are going to come to fruition. They're going to mature March, June, September, December. And now the next year, I do it again, but I do it 1 month earlier, February, May, August, November. And then the next year, I do it 1 month earlier, January, April, July, October. So what I've just done is I've created an annuity stack that is 12 annuities tall. And each annuity is going to mature one after the other, 1 month apart. So every one of these annuities is going to start generating income, whether it's a 5-year, 7-year, or as I illustrated here, a 15-year annuity with using the Athene Performance Elite 15. And what we're doing here is I took $120,000 out of my DFL program to start this. That's this number over here, the DFL chunk derived stack. That $120,000 is derived from my DFL, $10,000 a quarter, every quarter for 3 years. Okay, so I've reduced the potential return in my DFL program, but because of the nature of the annuities and because of the bonus that you get from an annuity, which in this case, the PE15 pays a 9% bonus, plus the interest rate that you can get with an annuity. In this case, we use the Janus 250 index as an index for these. Then I'm going to have these things grow. And the amount of money in the 15th year, this $10,000 annuity is going to grow to $23,371. And I'm going to never annuitize it. I'm just going to pull money from it, which is the money it's going to get as a return. And I'm going to pull essentially $14,000 a year out of this program. But more importantly, where's my value? I've turned a $120,000 DFL into a $280,000 annuity stack. Is it worth it? I don't know. It's an additional $13,000 worth of income with $280,000 that's consistently growing. I've done what any financial planner is going to tell you, which is divest. Don't have all your eggs in one basket. Does it make sense? For me, it makes sense. This is an annuity stack. And what I'm looking at, and that this is great, this is good growth, but the phenomenal growth happens by the 16th year. We have a 245% growth from the initial. And in the 20th year, we're up to 303% growth. And we're still taking income from this every year. This is another income stream. Did any of you have a holy cow moment then? Tommy D, what do you got? We got 1 minute.
So I'm still trying to figure out how I can get my finances in a way that I can do this. So I'm because this is killing me. How logical that makes sense to me with my knowledge of annuities, and I just got to get everything lined up. By the way, while Kelly was showing the portal, my son's been bugging me about that, so I got him on. He took a look at it, and he said, I need to start talking to my wife about getting one of these set up on her, and. So it was very, very exciting because he saw the results of what he's been doing for 7 months now.
Yep.
And he's not even fully funding it. They've been worried about being comfortable, and now he's going to max it out for the remainder of the year. Yep. And look at getting one in place for him. So I'm so glad Kelly did that, because seeing is believing. Yep. Is really the thing.
Yep.
I know there's a couple of clients on the call. I just want to make sure, did they have any questions? Don't be shy. We're all friends.
Oh, one thing I wanted to point out here, right, Tom? This annuity this annuity stack is derived from a DFL chunking mechanism. I'm not taking principal. I'm taking a loan. Mm-hmm. So where's my money? Now I've got money duplicated in two places. Yep. Earning income in two places. Same dollar, two places.
You're acting like a bank.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody have their hand up? If not, we're done.
Hey,
Thank you, Scott.
Yep. Hey, Leah.
It's Leah. Hey, in that situation, are you paying the loan back to yourself with your DFL?
Great question.
I'm sorry, what?
Great question. Who's the banker?
You are.
Yeah. Am I paying myself back? I don't know. Do I feel like it? Do I want to?
Okay.
If I don't, what happens? It pays itself off.
That was actually one of the topics he asked me. I said, well, let's pull $1,000 out. You're paying 5% simple for 1 year, so that's $50. Let's take the 4% guaranteed and compound it every month, 1/12 of it compounded every month, and it pays all but $10 or $9.25 back. But that doesn't include the dividend, which as we talk about, you don't include that. And the rules of engagement are you only have to pay the interest every year on your loan. So the interest of the compounded interest of the account plus a dividend is always going to cover the 5% simple interest on the loan.
There is a strategy and a logic to how you take the loan and when it would make sense to pay it back, because on the companies that offer compounded interest, if they offer a monthly compounded interest, then that means that they also have a monthly earned interest on the loans. So if you pay the loan back early, then you get credited back the unearned interest. So here's one. So if I'm getting 4% and I borrow it and I borrow that money at 5%, but I pay it back in 6 months, they didn't earn 5%. They only earned 2.5%. They're going to credit me back the 2.5% they already took. So now I have my cake, my $1,000. I'm eating it. I take the loan and I'm eating it again because I'm getting paid the interest that they took in advance. They're paying me back on it. So what did I just do? I just reduced my cost of money significantly. So there's a logic to the reason why you may want to do, that's the dollar cycling thing that we talk about. That's dollar cycling. That's going through taking a loan. I got a year's interest. I'm earning, roughly 4.4, 4.5 with a dividend on it. I'm going to pay it back in 9 months because that way I'm still earning interest on it. There's no negative delta. It's a positive delta still because I'm getting credited back that money. So there's a logic to the reason how you take a loan, when you take a loan, whether you pay it back or not. There's some logic to that too. So, all right. Thanks everybody for showing up. Hopefully you got something out of this. Again, if you were invited here as a client, talk to whoever brought you here, do a DFL. It's a no-brainer. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you,
See you guys.
Thanks, Scott.
Night.
Night.
Everyone, have a great night.